Welcome to the FHLIP conference. We are live here today. We do have a very special guest. She's actually going to be one of the speakers, so she's going to be presenting later on today, so we'll definitely pick her brain about that. But before we get started, I'm just going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Anne Forsyth. I am the Director of Clinical Applications and Decision Support at Women's College Hospital. That basically means I oversee the team that runs the technology that our clinicians use, and then we take all of the data that comes out of there and try and turn it into actionable insights for our leadership.
Okay, no, that's awesome. So being at Women's College Hospital, and you shared a little bit about your role right now, being in the hospital space, in the public space, what do you find is kind of your pressing items that you guys are kind of aiming for this year, given that the healthcare ecosystem with AI and so many things changing? What is kind of, front of mind for you guys as you navigate moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is moving at a pace that I don't think we've seen before in this industry. And we're kind of facing that against unprecedented budget pressures that are hitting hospitals, and so trying to balance that in the digital world of healthcare is a very challenging thing. And so we're seeing lots of demand, lots of kind of hype in the media about AI and its promise. And it is, it's very, very expensive technology. And so we need to be cautious, not just from a patient safety standpoint, but from a budgetary standpoint. So where we've been focusing is really optimizing the use of the tools that we already have and the technology that we already have. We were the second in Canada to implement the Epic EMR. And so we've had about 10 years of really kind of learning that system. And we're now really focused on standardizing our workflows in it so that we can get really good data, which is going to be the foundation of any AI work that we do in the future.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And so that being said, in terms of the healthcare ecosystem at large, so I know you shared a little bit about, being in the hospital space, public space with, a lot of changes with budget. And I think one piece that we shy away with, and I mentioned this earlier too, when it comes to cost, we shy away with, and I appreciate you kind of being upfront and transparent where, a lot of these AI technologies are expensive and being navigating that. And so I guess more in a general sense in the healthcare ecosystem, whether it be on the private or public side, what are your thoughts on some of the pressing areas, given some of the conversations we've had at FHLIP, or just in general, your thoughts on what is pressing in the healthcare ecosystem, or what you think we should kind of hone in on, or what you would like to share with the audience that maybe we haven't thought of?
Yeah. Oh, I think everyone's thought of everything, honestly, after the presentations that I've heard today. Like, people are living in the future here. I think one of the pressing things that we really need to address in our healthcare system is the administrative burden that we've put on our clinicians in this effort to digitize healthcare. I think we've kind of taken, this will be all in my presentation later, but we've kind of taken our paper world that we had and we've digitized it, but we haven't optimized to really use our technology and really take the burden off our clinicians. And so I think that is something that if we could just focus on for the next, few years, it can really set us up for all of the exciting technology that is coming, and give that some time to kind of, perfect itself and work out all of the kinks, maybe not in a healthcare delivery setting where the risk is higher.
No, and that being said, that kind of get a great segue to my next question, where you said a little bit about your paper. So you are presenting later today. If you don't mind sharing a little bit, some takeaways, some nuggets with the audience about your paper and the focus.
Yeah, the focus is all about how to sustain digital innovation. We work so hard to kind of think about, the best way to digitize workflows and how do we automate as much as we can from our clinicians and our staff at the hospital. But the hard work is actually in sustaining that. And this paper and my talk will be all about the models that we've put in place at Women's College Hospital to achieve that. And so it's things that we all know, it's training, it's real-time monitoring, but I'll present it with some real-life patient stories and hospital stories, and so hopefully it'll be interesting. But I think, we often kind of forget about spending money and time and effort on that sustainability piece. And I kind of end my talk today with a story that I really love, so I'll share it here.
Yeah,
it was I just saw it in the news a few days ago. So there's this stone formation that used to exist in the south of Italy. It's called a Lover's Arch, and it just collapsed on Valentine's Day, like ironically. And it collapsed, and it was described in the news as this inevitable tragedy. And so the people that kind of understand and know that stone formation knew it was coming because of this climate change impact that's been going on, and they had actually put in proposals to get funding to sustain and preserve it. and they didn't get access to that because the project wasn't shiny enough, and a storm came and the whole thing collapsed. And it's like hundreds of years of this beautiful natural thing that exists is now no longer there. And the parallels to our healthcare system are a little bit scary to think about, but it's similar. Like everything could kind of fall down if we don't be very strategic about where we're putting our money and our effort and our time.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I love how you kind of drew that parallel. As you're saying, as you went through the story, I'm like, I know where this is going, but I love it because it didn't strike me right away. But when you went through it, I was able to kind of connect the dots there. So I think that's so incredible.
Awesome.
In case those of you that don't know, Anne is presented all over the world. Like, it's incredible. So that being said, because you've been, in Dubai, you've been all over the world and presented in a lot of the work that you've done. That being said, being at these conferences around the world, are there things that you find that are similar between us in terms of, some of the gaps, the pain points we're all experiencing? Are there, differences? Anything you could share more on an international, perspective, just because you've had that exposure that maybe we can take away on a Canadian side?
Yeah, for sure. There are so many parallels with every system, whether they're more publicly funded systems, privately funded systems. The pain points are exactly the same. We're all trying to reduce administrative burden on our clinicians, and we're all trying to provide better care for patients. And so the ways that various countries are going about it, I find fascinating. It's the reason I do all of this international speaking, is just to really learn from others. And I think that we can take nuggets from all of these different countries. And, some have really focused in on data and how do we make that more available and accessible across the system. Some have solved the interoperability problem, and so I think we're not exactly the same as every system, but we can learn a lot from these other systems.
Yeah, no, and I think one piece you highlighted there about learnings, which is so key. So you also teach, and so at the FHLIP conference, there are a lot of students as well present and presenting and all of that. So just from your perspective, I guess kind of switching hats here, and in terms of the education side, and the generation coming in, they're going to be the future for us. So if you could just kind of tie in your thoughts on the changes that are happening in the ecosystem and the healthcare ecosystem at large, but also being in the academic space and teaching and kind of helping that involvement with the students that are coming in. Any thoughts on that, and maybe even tying it with FHLIP as well, with it being very heavily student based?
Yeah, no, I love it. I actually touch on this in my presentation. Come listen to it. But yeah, it's what I always say to my students in my classes. You need to, despite all the change that's coming with technology and like staying on top of all of that, it's important, but you need to understand the system that you're operating in and the ecosystem you're operating in, because you will never be able to successfully deploy it and do all the change management if you don't understand the levers and the groups that hold the power and the interest, and how do you kind of align all of the people, process, technology to actually do what you want to do. So you got to put in your time and do Daphne said it earlier at the start of the conference. You have to find those workplaces that are going to be your training ground, and that's where you're going to learn your values and your approaches that work and don't work. And so it is important to spend that time. Don't just pitch an app. That's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I think I love our conversation. We dabbled into everything. We talked a little bit about the work that you're doing at Women's. We talked about your paper, some international exposure that you were able to kind of take away as well, and on the academic and education side. So that being said, I would just want to wrap up and kind of hand it over to you. If there's anything else, any nugget, any takeaway you want to leave with the audience that maybe we didn't touch on, that you would like to share with the audience. So let me hand it over to you.
Okay. I always have to think of like something to say for these, because I always get asked these questions. I never know like how to sum it all up. But I do think we're at a really exciting time in the Canadian healthcare space, and also our country as a whole. Like we've never been more unified. People have never been wanted to be more unified than now. And so let's take advantage of that and solve some of these really big Canadian problems that we have with our healthcare system. And I think the new bill that was introduced to support interoperability and reduce data blocking and improve patient access is a really great first step in doing that. So I'm really excited to see where this momentum is going to take us next.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And just say, because you mentioned one piece about the legislation, what are your thoughts being on the public side? If you could just share your thoughts on that perspective with the bill being, passed and all of that. What are your thoughts on it, and just in general, and on an individual basis or from an organizational basis? Any thoughts about it that you'd like to share with the audience?
It's been a long time coming. It's still in reading. It hasn't been passed yet.
Okay, so thank you for correcting that. Yes,
just in case, you never know. A lot can happen when the critics come out. I think that it's a good first step. There's a lot of work still to be done in the regulation to this legislation, where standards that need to be complied with will be set out. And that will really impact what the vendors need to do and what the healthcare organizations need to do. And so it's a good signal to where we want to go, but the work is just beginning. So.
No, that's true, right? But like you said, it's a first step, and it's good that we're moving in that direction. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and
Of
sharing all your
course.
nuggets. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.